Shelby, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Discord was giving me a weird
Being
little
sassy.
error. Being sassy, as Discord is and does. Okay, cool. So it looks like we're recording. We'll give it a couple minutes for people to join. Or Discord stage had like a what is it called? Like a waiting room music or like autoplay or something. I think that could be really cool.
Oh, I can maybe look into that, see if I can make
Yes,
that happen.
this is definitely priority.
It's very critical to these governance working calls.
Extremely. Okay, so just want to get our agenda up for today. Where it went. Like a million tabs open. Hi, everybody who's here. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Just want to get there. It is. Cool. Okay, well, we can get started now. Since we got a couple people here, and we have a guest speaker at 5:30, so I want to make sure we have time to get through everything. So hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's Governance Working Group Hangout. I guess this is one of the first, oh no, we had one in January. Sorry, it's already February. Never mind. But welcome everybody. For those who this is their first time joining, this is the monthly call for the Radical Governance Working Group and Radical Community, where we discuss kind of happenings within Radical Governance. This includes proposals, governance initiatives like our grants program, and delegation, and sometimes bring in different discussion topics regarding governance tooling and governance, just all things governance. So this week, we have two proposals to review. I'll actually be doing the review for both of them, since the proposal champions couldn't join. I think this will be really great since we're going to be moving into a couple two more formal reviews next week. So we'll kind of run through what that's going to be like. We're going to have an update from the grants program, I believe. I haven't gotten a confirmation from Boredom, but usually he joins. So if not, I can give the grants update as well as a Q&A. And then Shelby will actually be doing a Q&A regarding delegation, our recent announcement of the delegation application process and active delegation platform, which will be great for anybody who's interested in joining the community as an active delegate. So that's going to be awesome. As always, this is recorded, so we'll have this on YouTube just in case you have to drop out. You'll be able to tune in once we get this recording online. And then if you have any questions or if you'd like to speak, please first post in the working group chat, in the working group text channel, and let us know so we can just limit the spam of people who just come in and try to nuke our our stages. So just drop a chat message in the working group, and then raise your hand, and we'll bring you up stage to chat. There'll be opportunities for Q&As after every agenda thing. So Shelby, do you want to do the reminders, or do you want to just? Okay, I can give this reminder. Sorry, I'm just looking at our agenda. So the quick reminder that I wanted to have everybody on the call right now is that we do have a new process for announcing and onboarding as delegates. So you can now announce yourself as a community delegate and find new folks to delegate to on the active delegate platform. Shelby, maybe if you want to drop the link in the text channel. So we've been talking about this a lot on the channels, and that's because this is one of the most important things happening right now in radical governance is delegation. It allows us to distribute governing influence within the radical community, and we're also going to be coordinating a large redelegation with our Radicle token holders, so reaching out one-on-one and asking people to either delegate their tokens to themselves or to community actors if they can't participate in governance themselves. So this is a really great opportunity to get involved in Radicle governance. Again, delegates are a super important part of any decentralized governing ecosystem, and so we're very excited to support our community as they announce themselves and start acting as community delegates. Shelby has done an awesome job as putting together this whole process and this platform, so she'll speak on that more later, but definitely would love to answer any questions that you have today on the call, and encourage anybody who's interested to reach out and chat with us about it. So with that reminder, we can jump into some of our proposal reviews. So the first one that I wanted to review is NASAR's new post regarding the Radicle Ecosystem Growth Fund. So I'm actually going to run through this proposal overview pretty quickly, since he and I actually collaborated a lot on it, and talk through next steps for that. So maybe Shelby could drop the link in the working group channel. So basically, this Radicle Ecosystem Growth Fund is a proposal to start MVPing kind of like the growth sub-DAO within the Radicle ecosystem. As everybody knows, Radicle's on the path towards progressively decentralizing the project. And this includes transitioning our development teams to the DAO. So instead of being funded via the foundation and coordinated via a centralized entity, decentralizing the coordination and funding of our development teams through the Radicle DAO and Treasury. It's a very exciting vision, and there's actually going to be a lot more coming with regards to the org design of that vision in the coming months. I'm kind of working on a couple proposals and RFPs there. But what NASAR is doing, which is really exciting, is starting to experiment with these ideas that we have for decentralized project organization with his own core team, which is the growth team. And so this proposal specifically is now in the second phase of the governance process, so we're kind of still in the discussion. But the goal here is to actually fund a multi-sig with a certain amount of money that is dedicated to funding initiatives that drive engagement and adoption, to start experimenting with more modularized capital distribution entities, if you will, and starting to stress test what social processes and infrastructure are going to be necessary for a DAO, a community, to manage a relationship with a sub-DAO, which again is kind of a more centralized version of a DAO. It's usually a multi-sig that's governed by a committee or a group of contributors. And the goal here is to create more focused and directed capital distributions and governance that are related to more specific objectives. So with this, we're again starting to test out what it could be for the growth team to be funded and managed via the DAO. And so NASAR and his team, along with some ecosystem partners, people on this committee, are basically proposing to fund a multi-sig for 6 months to start testing out some of these ideas. So a little bit more details on like what the actual proposal is for and what the fund is for. So again, the fund is for funding initiatives that drive engagement and adoption. So this is following early signals of product market fit with users and platforms who are looking to build and join the Radicle ecosystem, and also lean into like adoption of the Radicle stack of our protocols interfaces in the network through strategic actual investments, but strategic allocations of capital through initiatives. So the types of initiatives can be proposed by anybody. There is going to be a structure to those applications, but we envision these initiatives falling in the following categories. So there's like hackathon and event sponsorships, potentially funding part-time work related to different product-related growth activities, product development related to growth and adoption. It can be content media sponsorships, educational content sponsorships, even gas reimbursements for onboarding and adoption. And so these initiatives, the multi-sig is basically going to be dedicated to funding these types of initiatives. The budget is going to be around $500,000 in USDC. Deployed over the course of 6 months. And so the goal here, again, is to not do such a large scale experiment, but to start, progressively moving up the scale, seeing how we can deploy capital, how we can do it efficiently, and evaluate the, what is it called? Like the impact and the impact of those distributions on the Radicle community. So the multi-sig that would be funded via the Radicle Treasury will be governed by a group of individuals made up of the core team, community, and ecosystem members that have an expertise or experience in growth and adoption. So the members right now, the proposed members are Nassar and Matt, who's also here. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to raise your hand and chime in at any time in this process about this proposal, feel free. Me, Tom is the marketing lead right now within the Radicle DAO. He's kind of working on redefining our marketing strategy. And we have a couple of community individuals. So we have Dimitar, who I actually don't know about, but I think is from the Handshake ecosystem. We have Richard, who is coming from the open source ecosystem. Very exciting, actually, to have him involved. He runs a lot of really great initiatives. Nadia, who is the head of growth at MakerDAO, and Shah, who is working on Alchemy. So we have the goal here is to kind of, I think, create more fast decision making, but also pairing this with people who have a deep understanding of what's best for Radicle, and also what best supports the larger Web3 ecosystem as well. So that's kind of, I guess, all the details that I'll get into right now. The TLDR is that the growth core team funded by the Radicle Foundation is proposing to the Radicle Treasury to fund a multi-sig to fund growth initiatives in a decentralized manner within the Radicle ecosystem, and with the goal here of experimenting with more decentralized forms of capital distribution and organization. And this is kind of the first step towards some of the processes that we want to be experimenting with the progressive decentralization of Radicle over the next year. So that's the TLDR of this. There's tons of more detail about the application, the impact, the purpose, and how Nassar is thinking of managing the growth fund as the growth lead. And you can check that out in the discourse posts. This will be moving into formal review probably today or tomorrow. So this is definitely like a last call for feedback and comments here, since it's been up for the last week. So be sure to drop in your comments before we move it to the formal review, and please keep a lookout to participate in the formal review vote when it comes. So that's it from the proposal review for the Ecosystem Growth Fund. Any questions, or anybody want to add anything there? No? Cool.
Super cool, super exciting. That's all I wanted to add.
Very exciting. I think it'll be really great to, what's great is that since we had the Radicle Grants Fund program funded, a month and a half ago, we'll be able to, kind of move this through governance relatively quickly, since it's another treasury distribution. And I think that this will be a really great opportunity for Nassar and the growth team to start, experimenting with how we create this negotiation of objectives, how we evaluate progress in a community-focused way, right? Instead of the foundation negotiating objectives with each development team, how now does the community replace the foundation as basically the people on the other side who are working with the ecosystem fund to evaluate whether or not this should be funded. So I'm personally very excited for this. I shared my comments in the channel as well with a couple outstanding questions. Fordham did, and Nassar did some great responses. So once we get those resolved, we'll be moving this into formal review and putting it up for community vote. So thank you all for participating there. Great. So I'll move on to the next proposal review, which is, let me just pull up the, it's actually an interesting one. So this is for the, where did it go? I think I sent it to you, Shelby. I just forgot. Okay. So this is reviving the removal of the name registration fee proposal that was actually proposed last year in December. So basically, Nassar and Alexi proposed to adjust the name registration fee. For those who don't know, the name registration fee on Radicle is, it costs 10 Rad basically to register a Radicle.eth ENS name via app.radicle.network. This fee was kind of just introduced as like a stopgap solution. Basically it was a couple core team members came to the conclusion, or at least the, the opinion that it actually might be more beneficial to remove the name registration fee to support the adoption of Radicle orgs by reducing the costs and effort necessary when onboarding. And so this proposal was actually moved into formal review in December of last year, and then kind of lost a little bit of momentum due to two reasons. One being that it didn't reach the participation thresholds necessary for the formal review, so the snapshot vote. So it passed with flying colors, 887,000 Rad participated in the vote. However, this was a lot less than the 4% that our governance process currently calls for. For those who have been involved in Radicle governance, you know that this is an issue kind of baked into our governance process right now, and it's something that we've been working on changing and reevaluating. However, since we've been focused on kind of getting the grants program through, we haven't made any changes to that participation threshold there. So what we'll be doing, so that's like one reason why we're reevaluating it and why it lost momentum. The second reason is that this has actually become more important to kind of keep moving through governance because of some new product releases that are on the horizon. So the alt clients team is actually releasing the RAD CLI, which will allow for the creation, management of Radicle identities through the CLI. So without a reliance on a desktop client. This is really awesome. It's a great product. I think it's going to do worlds. It's been asked for a long time from the Radicle community ever since we launched our beta. And so the CLI is going to be a really exciting piece, a really exciting product for the Radicle ecosystem. And it will also allow for users to register ENS names from the terminal, so from the CLI. So this is also, and I think that Alexia and I chatted about it, we actually don't know if ENS even has this capability built in yet. So we also think that it might be a really important piece of infra for the ENS community, or any community that employs ENS identities in their identity schema. And so we're really excited about this and the potential of this, and we realize it would be way easier to support the adoption of our CLI name registration if we remove the name registration fee. So this is why this proposal is being revived. And Shelby and I had a discussion on how it's best to revive this. It did pass the initial formal review with, flying colors. However, it did not reach the participation thresholds in the same way that the grants program did. And so we think that to make sure that we're setting a good precedent and working by the governance process, we'll actually submit this for formal review again. We'll be adding a little bit more context. We'll be adding the code for removing the name registration fee. We'll be including some more information on the RAD CLI to kind of recontextualize and revamp this proposal to better resemble why we want to move this forward and the impact of it. And we'll actually repost it for a formal review and make sure that it passes those participation thresholds before moving it to an on-chain proposal. We also think that this is just best practice for proposals that maybe lost momentum and now are kind of being revived, instead of being and having an on-chain proposal sprung on you that you have to review. We'd rather take it a little bit more slowly, add some more context there so everybody is well informed and aligned. So I'll actually be pushing this second formal review through with participation from Alexi, and we'll work to get this into a snapshot and up for voting in the community. So that'll be the second formal review that you'll be seeing posted within the next 2 months that we'd love for everybody to participate in. Shelby dropped the link to the discourse post where you can see the previous formal review and discussion there. There's actually a lot of really great discussion there too, which I'm sure actually we'll probably pull on and again use to inform this second formal review and proposal. And we'll work on kind of pushing that through snapshot. We were thinking of probably putting up the second snapshot for 3 days instead of 5 days, just because it passed a formal review before. And while we want to stick to the process, we also want to make sure that things are happening efficiently, especially if there's things that have community buy-in. So I think we'll probably be reducing the time for voting to 3 days so we can kind of keep moving this through into on-chain. So that's kind of the thinking there. I think that this, again, will be really exciting, especially when paired with the launch of the RAD CLI, which will be a really awesome way of reducing the barrier to using Radicle by giving anybody the ability to create identities and manage them on the Radicle network by tying the developer workflow closer to one's local machine, and giving people a way of, tying their Web3 ENS identity to their local Git Radicle identity, I think is also really powerful. So I'm excited to add that new context to this proposal so people can kind of get excited as well. So that's it for the removing the name registration proposal. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that feedback? Feel free to just raise your hand or drop them in the channel. Cool. Great. No questions. Awesome. So please look out for that formal review coming in the next weeks. I'm just pulling up the grants update because it seems like Boredom wasn't able to make it today. And so I'll just give the update as a participant in the grants committee and all of that. So cool. We'll keep moving along. Oh, we only have 7 minutes until we have Tally coming on. Awesome. So let's move into the Radicle Grants program update. So over the last month, actually, the Radicle Grants program funded their first grant, which was really exciting. Let me just drop the link for everybody here. So the first grant funded by the Radicle Grants program was actually a retroactive grant application for someone's contributions to the Radicle Upstream repo. So this is really cool because it was something that actually was agreed upon by core team members and was, basically this contributor was encouraged to go submit a grant, is that they added the ability to register and edit ENS names for orgs on Upstream, which allowed users to basically link their Radicle identities with their org names, add different metadata, and basically kind of like enrich the Radicle Upstream interface. So this is really awesome. And was work that then made it into production. And it was an open source contribution by a contributor who then actually submitted for a retroactive grant after encouragement by the core team. And this was funded after review by the committee. It was really great to see this happening. I think that this is exactly what Radicle grants are for. I think people look at grants and say, oh, it's just for funding new ideas or new things in the ecosystem. And I actually think that Radicle grants is a great opportunity to just fund more work and more contributions in the open source ecosystem. So if people are interested in kind of more retroactive grant proposals, feel free to take a look at the one that the grants committee just funded and see kind of how they formatted that proposal. But it was really great. So that was really awesome to have happen. We also started putting together a couple more RFPs. So Boredom's been really great in capturing a lot of different ideas for stuff that we'd like to see worked on in the Radicle ecosystem, with the goal of sourcing people who are interested in participating and contributing to the Radicle project. So I just wanted to drop these two right here. So the first is actually making drips and communities embeddable into any site as a login gate. So this is a really cool UI front end project that's about making drips more easy to use from any experience. I think for those who don't know what drips is a recently launched protocol for funding creators, giving them the ability to access like NFT memberships and subscriptions, as well as streaming crypto payments. And so the thinking here is, how can we bring crypto-based subscriptions and membership to any website, right? To any experience, whether it be a DAO's job board or you know, someone's decentralized Patreon. And so I think this is another example of kind of more like innovative, kind of like cutting edge work that we'd love to see funded by Radicle grants, which is like taking the primitives that the Radicle team is maintaining and expanding them into and building on them to create a more, you know, buildable and usable stack. So that was one RFP. The next one is Radicle discovery and analytics. So this is a more functional one, but the goal here is to just create a way to rank, categorize, and surface relationships on the Radicle network based off of the way that people use Radicle. So this could be through orgs. Again, orgs are kind of more of an organizational primitive that we release in the Radicle stack, which give groups of developers building anywhere, ideally building on Radicle, the ability to have an organizational identity that's tied to their Web3 identities. So for example, like the Radicle Governance Working Group has an org, the Radicle Community Team has an org, the Radicle Grants Program has an org. And so this is not only a way to govern Web3 primitives like multi-sigs and pools of funds, but also repositories and information resources. And so this is the goal here is to kind of create more means of discovery into orgs, who's working for orgs, how can we see, how measure activity within orgs, and kind of creating, again, a little bit more of like social data within orgs. And then kind of building some more experiences off of that, since we really think that orgs represent basically like mini developer DAOs in a way. And then we also have building on and creating more analytics around drips, right? So with drips, you have individuals who are dripping to each other or receiving drips from other people. And so being able to kind of create some more discovery and analytics around the compound signals within the drips network. So who has, you know, who's being dripped the most funds from these organizations, right? What are the size of the drips? What's the value of the drips? What's the treasury size of the org that's dripping to these contributors? Basically trying to create, again, add more social data to the primitives that we've launched with orgs and with drips, with the goal of providing DAOs and organizations who want to employ these tools to organize and fund their communities, providing them with better tools for seeing how these tools are working within their ecosystems. So this was a really interesting one. Boredom also created some really awesome specs for just kind of like how we could start diving into it. The first milestone that we're looking for is to basically just do some like ecosystem analytics. So how to create basic high level insights about how the Radicle network of drips and orgs is working. So I think people who are, have experience with like doing analytics or just any kind of like stuff like that, I think that this could be like a really low hanging fruit for a grant, and it could be really interesting to get involved in. So that's one. That's the other RFP. So those two were created by Boredom, but just like a heads up that RFPs can actually be used by anyone to outline future work ideas, to prioritize or try to prioritize development of a specific piece of the Radicle stack, to propose a partnership integration. All of these are kind of tools that the Radicle Grants program and Boredom has put together to try to more strategically activate capital within the Radicle ecosystem. So very exciting there. As of this week, we have a couple more applications for freeform grants. I won't get into the specific applications, but I will just drop the grants category on radicle.community, where you can actually see these applications. A reminder that all applications to the Radicle Grants program are public and open for anybody to see. As well as a discussion around those grants. So be sure to take a look at those applications there. The committee will be reviewing this week. And we push all of our decisions to the discourse forum as well. So you can check it out there. So I'm sure Boredom would have done a way better job at doing that, but I hope that gave everybody a good overview of what's happening within the Radicle ecosystem. Looking at time, it's actually 5:31, so I guess we'll just wait for Dennison, who's the rep from Tally, to join to chat a little bit more about some cool work they've been doing. So first, are there any questions regarding grants? No? Okay, cool. Then maybe Shelby, if you want to get started with the delegation stuff, I can just like ping Dennison to see if he's joining our call. And then we can just pass it off to him. I'll just like ping you, I'll write you a message that he's here, and then we can just wrap up and pass it off to him to make sure that we're staying on his schedule. Does that sound good?
Yeah, perfect. I was gonna try to keep it short and sweet anyway here. But yeah, so new delegation announcement process, cool little platform. Yeah, I shared the links in the working group channel already. A few links back here, but yeah, the first link is a link to the delegate announcement forum post. There is another post which I can drop in here too that discusses more of the kind of context around our thought process around creating this new process and creating this platform on the discourse. I just dropped it in the channel there. Basically, what we wanted to do is create a new delegation announcement process and also platform, because it will not only help make delegation easier to navigate for rat holders, for people who are either unable to vote on proposals themselves or just don't have the time to feel like they to put into like reviewing everything. They can delegate. It makes it easier. The platform makes it easier for them to find folks to delegate to, and the announcement process itself, it allows it empowers motivated community members to kind of take leadership in the Radicle governance process. It does require them to put a bit more of themselves out there, and kind of explaining like their core values behind governance, and also things that they find important, and like a delegate statement and all of that fun stuff. But I think that also a lot more meaning behind announcing yourself as a delegate, and people can kind of like review that a bit more and see if it kind of aligns with their values and hopes and dreams and everything else in between. And yeah, so I guess like a quick overview of just like how it works. To apply, it's quite simple. You just post, kind of like I said before, your core values, a delegate statement, some like information, like, like your obviously your delegate address or your ETH address on Sybil, and like any contact information you want to share. And then after you do that, we do not have a review process. Like if you announce yourself, you announce yourself. We do not have a process where we're like, oh no, you can't do that. It's all open for everyone. Anyone can join and be a delegate. So once you do that, we'll add you to the delegate platform, which the platform is at the moment just a Notion page that is manually updated by the governance group, but it has not only the information you posted on your announcement post, but also on your or we're also going to try to include a few metrics, like how much RAD is delegated to your address at a given time in kind of voting history and stuff like that, just to also make it more of like a kind of full information profile, which is kind of cool. And then after you announce yourself, it's really just like keeping up with new proposals, commenting on proposals that make it to the formal review stage, just letting folks know how you would vote, so then that also helps them make a decision on who they delegate to. And yeah, so it's really not a ton of work, not a ton of commitment. We're really hoping we can get a few more community members who are already, there's already a lot of community members who are already doing this stuff, like commenting and, asking questions on the forum and being really engaged anyway. So really looking for more folks to announce themselves as delegates, to expand our, the delegate platform page or their profile list there. And also just to give those folks like some recognition too, of all of the cool work and the engagement that they're doing in the community. Yes, some other things going forward, as I mentioned, platform is just a Notion page, but tying back to the Radicle Grants program, Abbey and I are still working through a RFP for creation of a more formal platform for the active delegate profiles. It's almost done. I think we're still doing some final edits and reviews, but yeah, we'll be posting that, and hopefully we'll have a beautiful shiny platform here soon, and also automated, so we don't have to manually update it. And then also another thing that would be interesting, at least something I've been thinking about, and I mentioned to Abbey too, is maybe thinking about adding like a feature somehow of like refunding gas fees for delegates for on-chain voting, because if you're a delegate and expected to vote, it might just be a nice touch on that, just if for active delegates there. But yeah, so, and there's a lot of other small things too, but I wanted to mention that one specifically because our guest speaker, I think, is also going to be talking about some gas fee refunding and some other cool stuff. So we'll wait for them. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. I'm just going to say questions, and a quick note is that Dennison actually might not be able to join the call because he has to be in our Discord for 10 minutes before speaking, because hashtag spammers moderation, and so we might wrap up before his time's out. But let's see if anybody has any questions regarding delegation or the process. Anybody?
Also, yeah, I have any questions, and just a quick comment on like wrapping it also back to what we were talking about earlier, and participation in the governance process. That's also a goal behind this delegation platform and process, to hopefully increase participation. Again, we have a few stakeholders in the community who either cannot vote or it's complicated for them to vote. So this delegation process makes it a lot easier for them to be able to participate. So that was, I forgot to mention that. Just wanted to throw that in there quick.
Yeah, definitely. I think delegation, as I mentioned before, is a super important part of any ecosystem. So this is also, because I know we have Matt and Igor on the call, you know, it's also something that core team members can do as well and should, since we're starting to kind of reduce the reliance on the core team, ideally, by kind of decentralizing influence within the project. And so being able to start maintaining an active delegate profile, and kind of participating in governance in that way, I think will be, actually, I really encourage everybody who's kind of like has been in the project for a long time before we started decentralizing to kind of start getting engaged in that. And it's really exciting stuff, you know, to participate in governance as well. So just a note there.
We did have a question actually in the channel, and it was, yeah, is the program going to stay open? Is there a deadline? No, there's no deadline. There's well, hopefully, I guess, no end to this. It's really for, I guess that's maybe a good thing. I talked about, but there also is a process unannouncing yourself, so it's really up to you. You know, it would be great if you could do it for a longer period of time, but if there's ever a time where you want to step back from it, all you have to do is just make a post or respond to your original announcement on the forum post, and let the community know publicly that you will not be a delegate anymore, just so that they can reallocate their rad to other delegates. And we ask you to do that in like a month. Give us like a month, or give the community members like a month in advance, a notice, just to have time to do that. But yeah, it's up to you. There's no official dates or anything like that. It's really what fits you. Ideally, we would love to see this kind of stuff as soon as possible. Everybody, all the way. But yes, no deadlines.
Yeah, I don't think that there's like a hard deadline, but Shelby and I are going to be coordinating a massive redelegation within the Radicle ecosystem, again, to activate RAD holders who, there are some people who can't participate in governance, who don't want to participate in governance. And the goal here is to actually get them to redelegate their tokens, or just delegate their tokens in the first place. And Shelby and I are going to be putting in a lot of work to kind of like get people to do that, like one-on-one. And so while there isn't a deadline, sooner than later is definitely valuable, just because we want as much of a pool of community delegates that so our RAD holders can kind of, you know, effectively delegate and not have to delegate again, if that makes sense. But this program, yeah, it's a program, but it's more of an ongoing thing that now exists in the ecosystem. It's always going to be open. People are always going to be able to announce themselves as delegates, and manage their delegate profiles. And Shelby and I are just going to, in the governance working group, are just going to be working really hard to just keep improving and cleaning up that process and making it more accessible. So yeah, yeah, definitely no deadline, and it's not like an election period. It's ongoing with the goal of just surfacing, you know, that process and that ongoing process in the most clear and accessible way for other delegates and for RAD holders. So redelegation and delegation in general is, yeah, like an easier process. So yeah, it looks like Denison probably won't be able to join today. Just that's unfortunate. But what's good is that we're actually having a call with him tomorrow, and I think I'll probably just push to oh, I think we're doing that tomorrow. Maybe we're doing that tomorrow. I forget when, but basically we're doing a chat with Denison to learn more about some of the work that they've put into governance tools like gas fee refunders. So I can actually just drop the link for what he was going to be reviewing today for anybody who's keen on finding it, keen on, where is it? Oh, here it is. But yeah, basically delegation and voting and participating in governance in general takes a lot of work, and it also incurs a lot of costs, since often it is on-chain actions. And so Tally's actually working on some really cool tooling to create more automated refunding processes for people who are participating in on-chain governance. And so it looks like this is news to me. This seems like it's something that Compound Grants actually funded to build the codes in production. I think he just said that it's not very well funded, but it's something that I'd be super keen to adopt within the Radicle ecosystem as soon as possible, because I think reducing the cost to voice within a community is paramount. So Dennison was going to hop on and chat about that today. Oh my gosh, he's here.
Dennison is here.
I made it.
Oh my God, you made it. Great. Perfect.
Right at the last second.
Woohoo!
That's great. Well, I was just giving a quick overview on why I wanted you to come chat. Just give us a quick overview on this tele gas refunder, but I guess I just pass it off to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so as you probably mentioned, I wasn't even allowed to listen while I was in that like spammer scam purgatory. But as you probably mentioned around gas refunder, basically I'll just run through it really quick. It's a trustless on-chain system of refunding gas for transactions. And the key piece here is it refunds like 99% of the gas cost. It doesn't refund 100% of the gas cost because that actually creates a little bit of a weird game theory dynamic between like, sort of like front runners and stuff on chain. But basically what it does is it keeps for transactions that don't require message sender. So for things like voting by signature, delegating by signature, executing already queued proposals in a time lock, which anyone can do. Basically, it keeps track of how much gas has been spent at the start of the transaction, runs the transaction that you wish, and then at the end calculates how much gas has been spent, and then refunds, sends back to the user 95 or 98% of that amount of like the complete transaction. So it's pretty nifty. And the way that it's been designed is you can supply any sort of number of parameters. You can say, hey, you create a refunder that you can tell the refunder, we are going to refund function calls to these signatures, these function signatures, and we are going to refund a maximum amount of money. You can set the sort of gas price that you're willing to pay, refund, and you can give a validation function as well. So basically the validation functions are what you would use to, maybe prevent some sort of scammers or spam. You could say, hey, maybe only people with this NFT get their gas refunded. Only these people with enough delegations or less than this number of delegations get refunded. Or you can design that to do whatever you want. And the refunder itself holds the ETH. That can be something that you top up regularly, and it pays out of its own balance. So when it's too low, you would just go and top it up again.
This is super nifty. I have a couple of questions. So that's really awesome. So the contract itself holds the ETH, so it's not like pulling from a multi-sig or anything. So I guess
no.
like it would probably just be a multi-sig funding it and sending it to the contract or something, or the treasury doing that, right?
Yeah, so you could do it. You could do it either way, right? Like anyone can top it up, right? So you could top it up by a multi-sig, by by governance vote, whatever you want. Something interesting that's not implemented in Gas Refunder, which would be an interesting addition, would be to work via approvals. So maybe you could just approve it some sort of spend amount on some other treasury, and it can spend up to that like approved amount. But yeah, so you would keep it topped up, and that's because early on in these systems, you don't want somebody to discover some sort of weird kind of exploit that would lead to any sort of like economic harm, right? So you can pretty much figure out and say, hey, we want to have a budget of refunding, $1,000 worth of governance actions a year or a month or quarter or whatever. Top it up, and then when it runs out, you can simply top it up again, right? And if it fails, you're not preventing people from participating in governance; they're just not getting refunded, right? So it's sort of like a nice mechanism to reduce the cost, right? You could also say only the first 100 people to vote are going to get refunded, and that's very useful. Oh, another sort of recipe idea that you could do is you're only going to get refunded if you vote before the quorum is reached, right? Because one of the things on Tally we
Okay, yeah.
noticed is that like a lot of people sort of like pile in on the winning side once a vote has passed. And a system like
Mm,
this would make it really easy to just like, oh yeah, look, I voted for nothing. But they just pile in once the outcome of the vote is like clear. So you could have a little
mm,
validation function that's like only refund if the quorum has not yet been met on the proposal, right? And then you reward people who
nice.
make a decision before, you know, it's sort of like obvious that it's going to pass, right? Because maybe it's not worthwhile refunding the cost of voting yes when it's been clear for like, you know, the past million votes that it's going to pass, right? Like at that point, you know, that person is probably just doing their own governance mining for some future rewards based on participation.
Yeah, for sure. That's really great. I didn't know that it was so modular, so that's really awesome. Now, quickly about how, so basically each refunder has a contract address, which is like the governance address. So does it happen automatically? So do you just basically deploy your refunder contract, and then anytime someone interacts with the governor, like with our governance contract, then it happens automatically? Or do you have to do it through like a specific interface like Tally?
Yeah, so you do need to do it through a specific interface like Tally or yourselves. Basically, what it does is on Governor, you can vote by signature and delegate by signature, meaning the person calling the contract doesn't have to be the one that's actually casting the delegation or making the vote. So that would be, you know, something that like we would turn on in the Tally interface. That's something that you could turn on your own interface, and simply it would look and feel exactly like the regular process, right? It's not possible to do that automatically for you know, people calling directly the governor contract,
Okay,
because
yeah.
you know, smart contracts can initiate their own transactions. But yeah, it's pretty easy to
Yeah, I
implement
was
though.
just
It would
wondering.
just sort of sit in
Mhm,
front of it would have the same interface as the governors, vote by sig, delegate by sig. And
mhm,
yeah, you
mhm.
just call the refunder.
Yeah, just because we have obviously we can use a platform to do it, but then we also have RadGov, which is kind of like our CLI governance package for proposing and
Mhm.
everything. And so I was wondering how we could have it interface with that. But it seems like something
Yep.
that would
Yeah.
be just it just like makes so much sense. And so I would love to kind of push for the adoption of this like ASAP. Because reducing the cost of voice is like incredibly important. So in terms of how it's implemented, like how, for example, would a community start using the Tally gas refunder with Tally, if you will? Is it something that's been kind of employed in the interface, or does it take a little bit of hacking to kind of get it working?
Yeah, so today it's not yet in the interface. We've just been starting to talk recently with other teams who are interested in it as well. So it would not be very difficult for us to add to our interface. Like when you go to vote, you know, you just toggle it and say like, get a refund for your vote. So that wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
difficult for us to add. We would probably start planning that after ETH Denver to figure out. But it's also not
Mm-hmm.
difficult for you folks to start using on your own. We do have a front
Mm-hmm.
end, although I have to review it, because let me, the graph deleted all our subgraphs.
Oh no. Why did that happen?
Yeah, they do. They delete well, now on the hosted service, they delete your subgraphs if you don't use them once
Mm.
every 30 days. So they deleted it, which was like not awesome. So I've put it back up. It's just a Netlify app, or like the actual front end is, you know, open source as well. It's not a fantastic front end, but it's useful for setting it up. I don't know if I can actually
Mm-hmm.
text anything here at the same time. I'll
Can
just
just, you
text
can
it to
drop it
you.
in the text channel, or yeah, over.
The
Okay,
text
cool.
channel? Where's the text
Yeah,
channel?
it's right above this voice channel, hashtag working group
Work,
and governance.
working
Do
group.
you see it?
Okay.
If
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
I
Oh, you just
just
shared it.
copied it, so I shared it, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you can take a look at it there. It's not super polished because it was just meant to be used as a setup tool. And again, I do need to
Mm-hmm.
double check the subgraphs because I turned them back on yesterday, but I should like do some deeper inspection to make sure that the environment file is set up properly. But if you go on, I think, where do we have some deployed? No refunders on that. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, you might not want to trust it just yet because I just turned it back on in a rush.
Yeah, cool.
But basically, what you're able to do there is you're able to like spin up a refunder. The architecture is there's a factory that you call it to say create a new refunder. You get the refunder, and you can add as many refundables as you want on that refunder, and that's basically as many different functions that you would like to refund. You can add there. And that contract, belongs to you. You could deploy it using, Gnosis Safe or something so that it belongs to your committee. You could create functions that the governor can deploy it, which actually would be a really cool thing, so that it's owned by the DAO.
Right?
And then then you just fund it. Yeah, it would be easy enough to put into your CLI tool. So I don't think there would be any problem with doing that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna mess around with this, definitely. I'll probably do like a little write-up on it and maybe a proposal to the community just to get some more thinking on that. And I definitely will start seeing if we can kind of get it employed, even just in a test basis, and just fund it with one of our community multi-sigs and see what we can do. So awesome.
Sure.
But this makes so much sense. This is like so great that you guys built this. It's great.
Thank you.
Yes.
And it's also open source, so if there's things that you want in it, feel free to make PRs and like add on it and build on it.
Yeah, for sure. Will do. Nice.
So
okay,
we
guys, and thank you.
ourselves will probably get back to planning around it after ETH Denver. But
makes sense.
Feel free to hit me up. Yeah. Can't think until March. Yeah, feel free to ask us anything you want around it.
And could I just jump into, do you guys have Discord? How do you guys chat again? If I want to,
yes, we do have a
I can
Discord.
just drop you questions in Telegram or something.
Yeah, well, Telegram, I'm so like every messaging channel that you have eventually gets saturated. I am at that point for like everything. So go ahead, and I'm gonna drop our Tally Discord link in. Maybe we'll make a gas refunder channel. Oh no, I lost the Radicle link. Where am I? Hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't find you anymore. Oh wait, here it is. Okay. So so you can join the Tally Discord. Then maybe I'll see if we have a channel there. Oh no, I lost you now. Okay, I'm back.
We can hear you still. There you are.
Yeah, Yorgos, no, it's not used in production anywhere yet. So it's also not audited. That said, the security dangers of it are pretty minimal. Again, you pre-fund it with ETH. So, at most you could get scammed out of like whatever sort of money that you put into it for the voting. It doesn't have any special powers or security, right? Like it's essentially a proxy that counts up, basically figures out how much gas was spent on the proxy transaction, right? And in the case of voting or delegating, that's just on, those are all done by signatures. So it's not really possible to send in any sort of malicious information. And it was intended to work with sort of like publicly callable functions anyway. For proposing in the governor framework, you might need to make a little bit of change on that, because I think proposals do check message sender of the proposal strength. But what you would do for that to get around that is that you would simply delegate the gas refunder a certain amount of proposal power, and then it would be able to propose. But then, I guess then the gas refunder would be getting credit technically for having proposed it. But you can keep track of that separately.
Cool.
Oh, maybe you hear my baby.
Amazing.
In the background.
Yes, we do.
She's so cute.
Cool. Awesome. So cute. Well, that's great. Now we're at the hour, so we should probably all hop off. I'm so happy that you were able to join. Thanks so much for dealing
Thank you,
with the
Abby.
waiting time. I'll
Of
ping
course.
you. I'll probably be exploring this personally because I think that it's super important and I'd love to see it adopted as soon as possible. So I'd love to work with you guys on that process. So I joined the Tally
Yeah.
Discord. You can get my Discord name from here, and then feel free to loop me into
And
any
you're there?
channel if you want to create one specific for it. So
Yeah, I might create a gas refunder channel specifically there because there's a few other teams that have been asking lately.
yeah, nice. Love it.
Cool.
Perfect. Then
All
with
right.
that,
Thank you so much.
we'll wrap this call. Thank you, Dennison, and thank you everybody for listening. Just a reminder, this recording will be up within the next couple of days on YouTube for anybody who missed out, and we'll be sure to share it. So thank you everybody for joining. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.